Since returning from my trip to Thailand, many of you have reached out, mostly through the comments, and asked me certain questions about pitfalls to avoid, places they should go, safety concerns. And I've put together a list of the top 10 things. I'm going to start from the beginning with your preparation before you even get on the plane. Number one, packing. Now, on my journey, I was a solo traveler, and I knew that I wanted to try to pack as light as possible. As a vlogger, I also had to take my computer as well as camera equipment, and that stuff tends to add up with the weight. I would suggest for anyone to travel as light as possible. And one of the ways you can do that is going without certain things that you could possibly even buy over there, some t-shirts, socks, possibly even a pair of sandals or sneakers. And you can get that stuff really cheap over there as well. How much?
100 cannons,
120.
200 last night.
What? So underpack a little bit as far as the garments are concerned, and pick up what you may need along the way. Really help with keeping the weight down. Every time I travel anywhere, whether it's domestic or overseas, I try to avoid checking any luggage for a number of reasons. Number one, you just don't know if it's going to be there when you get there. Ordinarily it is. Usually the airlines are great, but mistakes happen. I don't like that feeling of nervousness, worrying the entire flight if my luggage is going to be there when I get there. But a lot of these airlines, especially the puddle jumpers that you take between islands, they tend to have tight restrictions on carry-on luggage. You can expect that you will be able to take one carry-on 7 kilograms or less. And so guys, that's about 15 pounds. Which is a decent amount, especially for just one person. But if you go over that 7 kilograms, trust me, nowadays they're weighing the luggage. They will stop you and either make you check it or you'll have to rearrange things. First thing you do is when you're booking your plane tickets, check online to see what their baggage requirements are. All airlines are different, but usually they'll let you take 20 kilograms. If you check it, 7 kilograms on the plane. Some airlines will allow you to take an extra bag that they call a personal item that needs to be able to fit under the seat. So just make sure you're on top of the, different rules that the different airlines have. They can vary across the board. For me personally, I don't like checking bags. So I will typically take 2 backpacks. One backpack that is filled with mostly computer equipment and camera equipment. If they require me to check one bag, that will be the one that comes with me. The other bag will be mostly the clothing and the other essentials. So if I lose that, I could always replace the clothing. There are so many varieties of backpacks these days, guys. And the one I like is not only a backpack, but it zips and unfolds completely. And when you open it up, it's 2 sides that are essentially a suitcase. It's easily portable because of the fact that it's a backpack. It's also a little less conspicuous because when they look at it, and they will look at it when you approach that counter, it's a backpack. So they may not give you as hard a time about it. But specifically when you go into Southeast Asia, I did notice that they are real sticklers about the baggage, the weight, and the amount that you can take with you. Travel tip number 2, the flight itself. Leaving from the United States in South Florida, so I left out of Miami. So you're talking about a very long overseas flight. In fact, 2 flights. You'll have to get a connecting flight. And so due to the fact that you're looking at probably anywhere from 20 to 25 hours in total flight time. I'm typically a window guy. I like having a window seat. I like to look out the window. Makes me feel a little better seeing what's out there. And also for the sights, when you finally fly over them, it's nice to see them, and also I can film them. But when I take a long overseas flight like that, I don't like to have people blocking me, people locking me in. When you're in the window seat, essentially, you're locked in. Now, I'll take a window over a middle seat. The middle seat is the one thing you want to avoid at all costs, because now instead of just having one person, you have 2 people, one on each side. So that obviously, you guys don't need me to tell you that, but especially on a long flight, if it's a 1-hour flight, you get stuck in the middle, you could live through it. But 15, 20, 25-hour flight, you certainly don't want to be in a middle seat. The aisle seat is optimal. You'll be able to stretch at least one leg out pretty much the whole time by sticking it in the aisle, as long as that food cart isn't or drink cart isn't going by you. But also you'll be able to get out of the seat, stand up, walk around much more easily than if you're in the window seat and you feel like every time you want to get up, you got to bother the person next to you. So when you're sitting in the aisle seat, you can stretch your legs, you can get up, you can go to the bathroom as many times as you want, or you could just get out of your seat and go hang out in another part of the plane. I like to do that every now and then to break up the time. The other thing is when you deplane, you will be the first one up and be able to get your suitcase. I personally don't really care. I'm like rarely in a rush. For me, that's just an added bonus, but it is nice to be able to get up first, take your luggage out before the other folks that are sitting next to you. And the other thing I wanted to talk about under this tip number 2 of flying, when you're flying this long, it's best to avoid alcohol for a variety of reasons. There's actually a new study that just came out that says that it could actually be dangerous for some people. So I don't want to scare anyone. Do your own research on that. But it's mostly because of jet lag. You're in the plane for so long. So basically what happens when you're flying in an airplane, you're 20, 30,000 feet up there for long periods of time. So they have oxygen throughout the cabin that you're going to be breathing in. That is really the basis for what causes what's called jet lag. If you add alcohol to that equation, it is just going to make it that much more difficult for you to acclimate once you land. The last thing about the flight itself is, and your flying plans, many people are coming from distant destinations, United States, Canada, even Europe is far away, Australia, wherever it may be that you're coming from, chances are you got a pretty long flight and a layover in between. So a lot of people, they look at the layovers and they're seeing, oh God, 12 hours, 10 hours, 8 hours. And they're of the opinion that it's too much time and they're going to already be tired and they want to try to look for a shorter window of a layover. Be careful with that because a lot of these flights are delayed. You land like I did in a place called Doha, Qatar, which, by the way, is a beautiful airport.
To a bus that's waiting here. So guys, we are in the city of Doha in a country called Qatar.
A little bit of a longer layover is better than a shorter layover. At least a minimum of a 3-hour layover. If you're already in Southeast Asia, obviously that's out the window. But if you're coming from places far away, from the West, like I am, then you certainly want to give yourself ample time to make that next flight. And there's nothing wrong with walking around. If many people transfer in Doha, there's other places too, but that airport is incredible. It's something to behold. It really is. There's so much to do there. They also have hotel rooms right in the airport. So if you wanted to sack out for a couple of hours during a long layover, you could do that, and it's pretty affordable. It's better to have a longer layover because the worst thing that can happen is you miss your flight. If you miss your flight, there may not be another one to Bangkok until the next day. And then what? So, just be careful with that. Tip number 3. Most of you, when you get to Thailand, you're going to probably land in Bangkok, in the main airport in Bangkok. There's 2 airports, but the major airport, Suvarnabhumi, most international flights will land there. And it's a great airport, and it's very well organized. You'll get there. If you need to get your luggage, that's pretty quick and easy, so just grab that. And then what I recommend you do is head downstairs, all the way downstairs into what's like the basement. The transit system in Bangkok is one of the best in the world. When you get to the airport, instead of taking a taxi, which will be expensive and be sitting in a lot of traffic, get on the airport rail right into the heart of city center, which is probably where you're going to be staying. It's called Airport Rail Link. And you can buy the tickets right there, and they're very, very inexpensive compared especially to a taxi. It's like 45 baht for a 26-minute ride to get to city center. Don't be intimidated just because you're just landing there. It's your first few minutes in Thailand and you don't know anyone and you don't speak the language. It'll take you to the exact part of town where you could just walk from the station to your hotel, which is what I did. Now, before you get on the airport rail, you're going to need some money. The monetary unit in Thailand is called the baht, B-A-H-T. They always say don't change money at the airport. It's the worst place to do it. Well, ordinarily, that is probably true. But there are money changers that are known to be some of the best throughout Bangkok. And the best one that I've found, and it's very commonly used, and you'll see some long lines because people know this, is to use what's called super rich. There's a few of them too. I think there's one called Daddy Rich. If you want to go to super rich, and don't go to the one that's upstairs when you first get out because that'll have the longest lines. Go all the way down to that basement I was telling you about, to where you pick up the rail, and you could get your money changed right there. Now, a key thing to keep in mind when you're going to be exchanging your money, make sure before you leave, the money that you're going to bring, the cash you're going to bring with you, you want to make sure there's no marks, there's no tears, and the bills are in good shape. What I do is I go to my local bank and I bring the money that doesn't look so great, and I say, hey, and I tell them, and they know. They get a lot of people that do international travel to Southeast Asia, and they're like, oh, yeah, we know. We get this all the time. Bring the money that doesn't look that great. Tell them, here you go. Please exchange this for crisp, brand new bills. And they'll give you bills with no marks. When I got there, I had no issues because they will scrutinize your bill. They'll look at it, not just to see if it's real, but to see if it has any marks, too many cracks, folds, bends, and certainly no tears whatsoever in them. So you just want to make sure that those bills are crisp and clean. So once you get into Bangkok or any other part of Thailand you're going to, they have what are called tuk-tuks, which are vehicles that are sort of like taxis, but they are the open air motorized transportation vehicles that are commonly used throughout Thailand. Much more economical than getting in a taxi. I didn't take one taxi when I was in Bangkok. The only taxi I took was I paid for a Grab, which is an app you should download on your phone. It's kind of like their Uber to take me from Bangkok to Pattaya. And it was pretty reasonable. I think it only cost me like, man, I don't even remember, maybe $60 or something for like, about a 2-hour ride. So that was the only time I used anything that was like a car, a vehicle to take any kind of a trip. Everything else was tuk-tuks. And what I really relied on were the motorbikes. Because first of all, you want to talk about zipping in and out of traffic? They were great. And also they're cheap. I went sometimes across town for, $2-3. So you can't beat that. Now, it may not be for the faint of heart. It's not for everyone. It can be a little hair raising at times. Some of the motorbikes the drivers didn't offer me a helmet, which I'm not going to ever do that again. If I'm getting on a motorbike, they have to have a helmet for me. So I don't know if they just weren't offering them or didn't have them or what. But Bangkok was the only place I ran into that, by the way, with no helmets. But they're very economical. It is the most economical form of transportation that I had in all my travels throughout Southeast Asia. So personally, I'm a fan. I like them. I will use them again. So that was tip number 4. Tip number 5, once you get there, you get your transportation. Now you're going to either your hotel or your Airbnb or wherever it is that you happen to be staying. Most of us will stay either in a hotel or an Airbnb. This is my opinion about Airbnb versus hotel. Airbnbs are going to be more bang for the buck, generally speaking, much more in some instances bang for the buck. I mean, you could get some really large places with multiple rooms, multiple bathrooms, in some instances, villas or townhouses or houses. So you will not get that usually in a hotel. And sometimes some of those that are in those categories will be as much, if not less than what you would pay for a normal hotel room. So I certainly think you're going to get a great value with Airbnb. What I think is risky about Airbnb and why oftentimes I will get a hotel as opposed to an Airbnb is when I'm first arriving in a city, especially if I'm arriving late at night or early in the morning, it's nice to walk into a hotel lobby and there's life there. There's people there. You go through the registration, they'll hand you your key, and you go up and you got your room and you're in business. With an Airbnb, that still probably will be the case, that you'll be able to make prior arrangements with the host and they will do what it takes, whether it's a lockbox or have somebody meet you there or whatever the case may be, if it's prearranged, typically it will be fine and you'll be able to get in at 2 in the morning. However, you just don't know. I do know that when I go to a hotel, wherever it may be around the world, that there's going to be somebody there at the registration that I will be able to get my key and get into my room. Oftentimes, what I will do is I will first get a hotel, and then in the midst of my time there, especially if like in Bangkok, I stayed at multiple places because I was there for, over a week, decent amount of time. I will change from an Airbnb to a hotel or vice versa. The only thing about making multiple changes when you're traveling is this: you will lose time. Like, for instance, when I switched from a hotel to an Airbnb at the State Building in Bangkok, remember when I did that? I had to wait for my check-in. And so I sat down and I had something to eat in one of the local restaurants. It was a great experience, but I had my 2 bags with me. So a little bit uncomfortable. And if you want to plan on going to a temple, going to a museum, or, doing something, you will have to wait until you're checked in to your new digs if you're going to switch. So that's the only thing. There's going to be lost time. Personally, I like to change it up, go to different parts of town and stay in different places to get a different feel. The last thing I want to talk about dealing with where you're going to be staying is a lot of travelers, especially the backpackers that go to Southeast Asia, they will not make their reservations until they get there. And in fact, oftentimes they don't even make a reservation. They'll just walk into a hotel and say, I need a room. I typically prefer to maybe even pay a little bit more, but have my reservation, know the room is booked, and know that when I get there, I got my room waiting for me, whether it's an Airbnb or a hotel. I have seen times, even vloggers on YouTube, where they would walk into a hotel and say how much, and they say, sorry, we're booked. I saw that happen to a guy. It's the weekend. Sorry, we have no rooms. And so he had to take the time to go bouncing around looking for another place to stay. Now, it's not just the time you lose from doing that. It's also the fact that you are going to be possibly stressing out as to whether or not you will have a place to lay your head for the night. So personally, I like to have my itinerary, right? That's why they have itineraries of where I'm going to be staying, when, for how long, what I paid, what I get for it. Does it include breakfast? My confirmation codes and all that, the phone number of the hotel, the address of the hotel. I have all of that neatly written out in an itinerary. So when I get there, no surprises. Tip number 6, budget. So here's what you'll find when you travel to Thailand. For most of you, again, if you live not too far from the area, this may not be the case. You will find that the most expensive part of the journey is getting there and getting back. That is it. That alone, for me, getting there and getting back cost as much as the rest of the entire trip, literally. So it's expensive to fly to Thailand from America, especially from Miami. So do the best you can on the flight. But when you get there, generally, a lot of the hotels are really cheap. I mean, you can get a decent place for $30, $40, believe it or not, maybe even cheaper. But again, generally, you will find that the airfare is the most expensive thing. Now, airfare, when you get there, if you're going like, let's say, from Bangkok to Krabi or to Phuket, it's not that bad. The puddle jumper flights aren't that expensive. You might pay, I've had flights that were $50, $60. And the most expensive thing is the airfare of getting over that ocean to get there. You have food, you have entertainment, and you have your room. But as far as the food goes, one of the greatest things about traveling to Thailand is the food is delicious and the food is cheap. And I mean out of this world savory, delectable foods, the likes of which are difficult to get in other parts of the world. It's that good. And it's so cheap. I could literally eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner in Thailand for $6, $7 for the whole day if I do it right. I mean, you could get a really good hearty meal for $3 in almost anywhere in Thailand. If you go to some of the fancier restaurants, especially if you go to some of the Western style restaurants, the burger joints and places like that, it's going to cost you a lot more money. You'll spend 3-4 times as much on a meal like that maybe even more than that, as opposed to one of the real authentic sort of hole in the wall kind of places that has 1,000 times better food anyway. So avoid those burger and pizza joints. That's not what you're there for anyway. And they tend not even to be as good, but they are certainly expensive. One of the more expensive meals I had was when I went just out of curiosity to McDonald's. I went there for curiosity, but and if you're there for a long time, you might be jonesing for a little Americana, a nice Big Mac or a quarter pounder. So I get that, but the food itself is very cheap. Now, if you want it to get even cheaper, this is what I would suggest. The place where food and especially drinks are not that cheap are the bars. They really get you there. And some bars are worse than others. But what I like to do is 7-Eleven is your best friend in Thailand. They are everywhere. Two things proliferate in Thailand: 7-Elevens and massage parlors. They're everywhere. You can't go a block without finding minimum one or two 7-Elevens across from each other. And you'll see a lot of people in those 7-Elevens. Sometimes the lines get out the door in some of those 7-Elevens. That's probably why they have so many of them. But what I love 7-Eleven for is, first of all, the beer. It's the way to go. You can go into 7-Eleven, stock up on your beer, go back to your hotel, put it in the fridge, and you're good to go. And the great thing about Thailand is there's no open container laws. You can pretty much walk around anywhere and drink an open container of beer. No one will bother you. They even sell hard alcohol in 7-Eleven. So you could get a bottle of, I wanted a martini. So I bought a small bottle of vodka there. And it was pretty reasonable. I think it was equivalent to about $7 or $8 for a small bottle of it. So that's available as well. The other reason I love 7-Eleven is, believe it or not, speaking of food and how it plays into the budget, they have this area in the back where they have refrigerated meals that are in these little plastic containers. And they are like home cooked stuff that somebody made at some company there, I guess. And it's just as good as a lot of the restaurants I sat down and had pad thai. So they'll sell a bunch of different types of pad thai: chicken pad thai, shrimp pad thai, beef pad thai, and other stuff as well. But I bought a bunch of those and threw them in my fridge. And every now and then I just took one, threw it in the microwave, and it was delicious. They even give you little sauces that go with it. Fantastic. So cheap for a hearty meal. And they're pretty big too. So I would suggest, remember, 7-Eleven is your friend, especially when it comes to budget. That brings us to tip number 7, safety. I have gotten many questions from people asking me, can I walk around Bangkok? Can I walk around Pattaya at night? Can I walk around Phuket, on the walking street without worrying about getting mugged or pickpocketed? I have this saying: you're only as safe as the people who are around you. In other words, you could be in the best part of town and you get thugs that just happen to be passing by you that were in that part of town that day, and you happen to cross their path. That notwithstanding, I believe that Thailand is extremely safe. I felt safe everywhere I went in Thailand. At night, especially if you're like coming off walking street, it's like anything else. You got to keep your wits about you. Don't make yourself a target. It might be obvious that you're a tourist, that you're a Westerner, you're not from there, you don't speak the language. Don't go flashing your cameras, your cell phones, jewelry. Now, I am a vlogger, so I do have camera equipment, expensive camera equipment, and I often use my cell phone. There are stories of phones being snatched. I heard more of that in Vietnam, to be honest with you, than I did in Thailand. If you have to worry about anything in Thailand, in my opinion, from my time that I was there and what I saw, I would say it's more of the thing of, don't lose any of your stuff and don't make yourself a target for any of the undesirable people that may have ill intentions toward you. Now, when you arrive in Thailand, you'll see signs right at the airport that say, warning, pickpocketers. And so, they want you to be aware that they're out there, and that's good that they do that. But I personally didn't have any issues with anything like that. I didn't even have people really looking at me the wrong way. But there are scammers that will try to take advantage of tourists. And I will say this, because I'm a big fan of Thailand, so I don't want my Thai friends to get offended. And I don't think they will, because they're smart and they know there's bad people everywhere. But they are the exception, they are not the rule. But there are some that will try to take advantage of you. You know, I had the one gentleman that was trying to tell me that Chinatown was closed. That's right. We are going to one of the oldest Chinatowns. Join me as we head over there. Chinatown, which way?
No, Chinatown is Sunday. They're
Sure.
not open there.
Yeah.
Sunday, nothing.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
No, yes, they are. Okay.
Okay.
Sunday happens to be the biggest night, dude. Don't tell stories. Because he wanted to take me somewhere else where he probably got a commission. Sometimes there are tuk-tuk drivers that will try to take a scenic route to what your destination is supposed to be to try to take you to a restaurant or someplace else where you'll spend money and they get a commission. Just tell them in no uncertain terms, listen, here's where I want to go. Take me here. Don't take me anywhere else. The last thing that I want to say about safety has to do with your stomach. Keeping safe when you're eating, because we're not from there. Our bodies are acclimated to different organisms in our gut than the local people are. When I was in Thailand, I did not get sick once, and I'm thankful for that. When I went to Vietnam, I got sick towards the end of my trip, and people will tell you, oh, don't eat out of a cart, it's too dangerous. Listen, I was eating out of carts daily. But what I did do was, as you guys saw in one of my videos, I acclimated my stomach first. I went to some places that I knew I could depend upon before I kind of got a little braver, where the likelihood of me getting sick was very low, before I kind of pushed the envelope and got braver and worked my way up to the food carts and, eating street food and that kind of thing. To keep yourself safe, this is what I would say to do. Number one, bottled water all the time. You don't want drinking water. Avoid the ice unless you're absolutely sure it was a filtration, and a lot of the restaurants do have it, so ask them. But avoid the ice almost at all costs unless you know for sure that that ice is good. So water is the first and foremost. The thing that will make you sick is the water. So watch out for that. Secondly, uncooked meats, whether it's chicken, fish. I mean, you could get really sick from eating things that aren't thoroughly cooked. What I do is, if I'm getting, because a lot of it is like barbecued meat on sticks, you'll get a lot of that kind of thing. I don't take from the stuff that was cooked and then was put to the side. I tell them I want the one that's still cooking, that's on the grill. And oftentimes I'll even tell them, leave it on there for another minute or two. I make sure the thing is thoroughly cooked. And lastly, because this is the thing that actually got me sick in Hanoi, I avoid vegetation, and it's delicious because it's a variety of flavors. So the fact that I only got sick once is good. Now, I heard that you could take these charcoal tablets that are supposed to be good because it will bind the organism to it to help it pass more quickly. Try to avoid those items as best possible. If you're going to have any vegetation, make sure it's cooked. Thailand tip number 8 has to do with exploring and the places that you go in Thailand. My favorite city was Bangkok. I just loved it. I'm a city boy, so maybe that had a lot to do with it. I just felt like a kid in a candy store. It was a fun city for me. And it's huge. And it's geographically huge. I mean, it's gigantic. It has many different sections to the city. So it's a good idea to try to get that down and understand what's where. It's a big city. In fact, the biggest city in all of Thailand. So odds are, if you're going to Thailand, you're going to spend some time in Bangkok, hopefully more than just passing through the airport on your way to somewhere else. But the one that I discovered that I almost wasn't going to go to, and then I saw it on the map, and I was like, oh, this looks like it's in a good spot. What is this here? It's called Krabi, and a lot of the beautiful islands are close to Krabi as well. Not that far, about an hour on that boat to get to each way. That makes Krabi a convenient spot, but also the little beach town that they have there and some of the night festivities that went on there. I would say that Krabi was the most pleasant surprise that I had during my trip to Thailand, because I went in with low expectations. I mean, don't ask me why. I wasn't sure quite what to expect, but I came out of there with the highest regard for that beautiful, beautiful city that you guys, I think, should definitely not miss. Now, when I went to Krabi, and I took that long-tail boat ride, one of the places I absolutely wanted to see was Maya Bay, with that incredible beach with the scenic views that became famous from the movie The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio. I wanted to just give you this perspective. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to Maya Bay, but what I will tell you is if you're going to Maya Bay, you should just go because you want to see that incredible spectacle of that view, which is heavenly. There's really no other reason to go to Maya Bay. You can't really do anything there. I mean, they have a little concession stand there, I guess, where I ate some corn. But other than that, you can't go swimming. There's really no exploring to do there. Once you get off the dock, you make your way to the beach, and you're only able to go in up to like maybe your kneecaps, maybe. And they literally have a guy that walks around with a whistle if you get any deeper than that, and he tells you, hey, come in. It's an environmental thing. They want to try to preserve the beauty of the place. They don't want all people's like suntan oils and stuff going in there and ruining it. So I think it's great that they're doing that to protect it, because it did get over touristed for a while, and they literally shut it down before finally opening it up with these new restrictions. And there are so many other island escapes that you can go to, like that Railay Beach. I really think that that's a great place to go. And it's a lot closer to Krabi. It's just to the other side of that. So it's very close, very easy to get to. And there's things you can do. You can actually explore. You can actually go in the ocean there. So it's more of an experience. Whereas Maya Bay is just kind of like, you get those selfie pictures that are great to send to people and take home with you. And you get to say that you were there. And you get to behold the wonder and the beauty of the area. Aside from that, there's really not anything else that you can do there. You certainly can't stay there. There's no hotels or bungalows or anything like that. So just keep that in mind. And that leaves my last tip, and it's kind of sort of closely related to what I just mentioned. And what I want to tell you guys is get out of the tourist zones. Don't just go to the Pattayas. Don't just go to the Bangkoks. Get out of the tourist zones. Go to some interesting places off the beaten path. Meet the local people, explore different foods that are unique to the certain areas that you can go to. And you will have some incredible memories that are more rewarding than those that go just to the normal touristy places that everybody else goes to. So I hope that this helps you in your trip to Thailand. The only other thing I want to say is it's great that you're getting out there. Life's about the experiences. Thailand was a place that was always on my bucket list that I wanted to go to. And I will tell you, usually when you have high expectations of a place, which I did for Thailand, they let you down, they disappoint because they don't live up to that. Thailand exceeded my already high expectations. So I urge you, go, have fun, be safe, enjoy, and thanks for watching.
No clue where the hell I am right now. And look at this view. Spectacular. We really pushed the envelope on this one.